Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Bhonachari Yamuna Tira Bhonachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Mr. Bhad Paramahansa Dravida Prabhu Ashtotar that Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBD Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Dravida Acharya Ashtotar that Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananda Koti Vaishnavina Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Shri Upadeshamrita Ki Jai Nectar of Instruction Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Wait a second. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On this 17th day of December 2018 in SanDiego, we're reading from the Sri Upadeshamrita, the Nectar of Instruction, by Srila Rupa Goswami. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in verse number 5. I'm sorry, verse number 6. Verse number 6. And we'll put it on pause there. You got something there, Damodar? Maybe you can share with Prabhu. Why don't you swing over, you'll be able to chant. I'll wait for him to get it. Uh-oh. Can you put it on mute? Huh? You there? Okay. Here we go. Drishtai swabhava janitai vapashascha doshar na prakritattvamiha bhakta janasya pashyet gangam basana kalubudbudapena pankar brahma dravatvam abhagacchati nidharmai. Okay, here's a real life experience. We'll go back and do one word at a time, and then maybe it'll help. Drishtai, Swabhava, Janitar, Vapushash, Chadoshar, Na prakritatvam iha bhakta janasya pashyet gangambasam nakalu budbuddha pena pankar brahma dravatvam apagacchati nidadharmai drishtai svabhava janitaya vaprashascha doshar. All right, I'll go a little slower. Na prakritatvam iha bhakta janasya pashyet. All right, every syllable counts. Gangam basamna kalubud buddhapena pankar. Brahma dravatam apagacchati nidharmai. All right, one more time. Drishtai svabhava janitaya vaprashascha doshar. Na prakritatvam iha bhakta janasya pashyet. All right, David Ruth is going to say the second word in that line alone. Prakritatvam. Say prakritatvam. All right, now we'll try that line again. Na prakritatvam iha bhakta janasya pashyet. Gangam basam na kalubudbuna pena pankar. Brahma dravatam apagacchati nidharmai. Janardhan, take it away. No? Damodar? Oh, yeah, give it a shot. Drishtai svabhava janitaya vaprashascha doshar. Na prakritatvam iha bhakta janasya pashyet. Gangam basamna kalubudbudapena pankar. Brahma dravatvam apagacchati nidharmai. You want to give it a shot, David?
I'll do like this.
Okay.
Drishtai svabhava janitaya vaprashascha doshar.
Na prakritatvam iha bhakta janasya pashyet. Gangam basam na kalubudbuna pena pankar. Brahma dravatam apagacchati nidharmai. Okay, 1 minute for my theory about why it's harder for the younger generation to chant these. When I learned English, back in the first grade, in like 1953, we learned syllable by syllable. But then they had a whole system of like learning the whole word. Is that how you learn to read? Like you read, huh?
What's it called? Phonics.
Phonics, whatever. So instead of analyzing each syllable for sound, you look at the whole word, but the whole word doesn't mean anything because it's a different language. So maybe that's one of the reasons it's hard. But let's go on. Okay, I'll say, you say. Drishtai, seen by ordinary vision. Svabhava janitaya, born of one's own nature. Vapushaha, of the body. Cha, and. Doshai, by the faults. Na, not. Prakritatvam, the state of being material. Iha, in this world. Bhakta janasya, of a pure devotee. Pashyet, one should see. Ganga ambasam, of the Ganges waters. Na, not. Kalu, certainly. Budbuddha, pena pankai, by bubbles, foam, and mud. Brahma dravatvam, the transcendental nature
apagacchati,
is spoiled. Niradharmai, no, niradharmai, the characteristics of water. Okay, translation. Well, quite a translation. Being situated in his original Krishna conscious position, a pure devotee does not identify with the body. Such a devotee should not be seen from a materialistic point of view. Indeed, one should overlook a devotee as having a body born in a low family, a body with a bad complexion, a deformed body, or a diseased or infirm body. According to ordinary vision, such imperfections may seem prominent in the body of a pure devotee. But despite such seeming defects, the body of a pure devotee cannot be polluted. It is exactly like the waters of the Ganges, which sometimes, during the rainy season, are full of bubbles, foam, and mud. The Ganges waters do not become polluted. Those who are advanced in spiritual understanding will bathe in the Ganges without considering the condition of the water. Purport. Shuddha Bhakti. Now, before we begin, you remember the last verse? Krishneti yasigaditam manasarjeti dikshati chepatam vijischabhajanta visham shushu shayabhajana vigyamananyamanyanindari shunyvidamipsada sangalabhya. So there's different levels. He's saying if someone just chants once, Krishna iti, one should offer obeisances in the mind. If someone is duly initiated, one should physically offer obeisances. And if someone is very, very advanced, and is advanced in hearing and chanting, and is devoid of the propensity to criticize others, in other words, a pure devotee, one should covet his association and listen to him and serve. Okay, that's from that last definition of the pure devotee. That's what this verse is coming from. If that pure devotee may be very ill, he may be deformed, he may be from a low family, but one should still covet association. That's what this is all about. Shuddha Bhakti, the activity of the soul proper, in other words, engagement in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, is performed in a liberated condition. In the Bhagavad Gita 14:26, it is stated. I'll say, you say, Mam chayo vibhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Avyabhicharini bhakti, that's from the verse in the Gita, means unalloyed devotion. A person engaged in devotional service must be free from material motives. In this Krishna consciousness movement, one's consciousness must be changed. If consciousness is aimed toward material enjoyment, it is material consciousness, and if it is aimed toward serving Krishna, it is Krishna consciousness. A surrendered soul serves Krishna without material considerations. Anyabhilashita shunyam, jnana karma dhyanavartam. Unalloyed devotional service, which is transcendental to the activities of the body and mind, such as jnana, mental speculation, and karma, fruit of work, is called pure bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga is the proper activity of the soul, and when one actually engages in unalloyed, uncontaminated devotional service, he is already liberated. Sagunan samatityaitan. Krishna's devotee is not subjected to material condition, even though his bodily features may appear materially conditioned. One should therefore not see a pure devotee from a materialistic point of view. Unless one is actually a devotee, he cannot see another devotee perfectly. As explained in the previous verse, there are three types of devotees: Kanishta Adhikari, Madhyama Adhikari, and Uttama Adhikari. The Kanishta Adhikari cannot distinguish between a devotee and a non-devotee. He is simply concerned with worshipping the deity in the temple. A Madhyama Adhikari, however, can distinguish between the devotee and the non-devotee, as well as between the devotee and the Lord. Thus he treats the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the devotee, and the non-devotee in different ways. No one should criticize the bodily defects of a pure devotee. If there are such defects, they should be overlooked. What should be taken into account is the spiritual master's main business, which is devotional service, pure service to the Supreme Lord. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 9:30, Apichet suraracharo bhajate mam ananya bhak sarareva samantavyak samyag vavasito hi saha.
Even if a devotee sometimes seems to engage in abominable activities, he should be considered a sadhu, a saintly person, because his actual identity is that of one engaged in the loving service of the Lord. In other words, he is not to be considered an ordinary human being. Even though a pure devotee may not be born in a Brahmin or Goswami family, if he is engaged in the service of the Lord, he should not be neglected. In actuality, there cannot be a family of Goswamis based on material considerations, caste, or heredity. The Goswami title is actually the monopoly of the pure devotees. Thus we speak of the 6 Goswamis, headed by Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami had practically become Mohammedans and had therefore changed their names to W. Kas and Sakura Mullik. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself made them Goswamis. Therefore, the Goswami title is not hereditary. The word Goswami refers to one who can control the senses, who is master of the senses. A devotee is not controlled by the senses, but is the controller of the senses. Consequently, he should be called Swami or Goswami, even though he may not be born in a Goswami family. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Maha. What is that verse? You know the one where it says Narakisa? Have you ever read that verse? Yeah. One who sees, anyway, the English is that one who sees a devotee in terms of caste or place of birth is already a resident in hell. I forget the rest of it. It's one who understands that the holy name is an ordinary sound. Huh? Yeah, I'm not sure if that's in there, but that's the same idea. In other words, one who has materialistic vision and sees all of these sacred and holy manifestations through the material eyes and sees them as mundane, has a hellish mentality. So that's more or less the subject of this verse. We should not judge devotees by their external manifestation. Now, it's also true that the previous verse we were saying, oh, this person has chanted one time, and therefore we'll offer our obeisance. But if you see and they're doing all kinds of nonsense after that, okay, well that's the way you offer your respect. If someone walks by the, wait a minute, did I say Om Jnana? Yeah. I did say. If someone walks by the chanting party and may chant one time, and then they go off and they go into a bar, it happens all the time. So the devotee should feel very happy if someone even walks by the party and hears. Most of the time you hear, reading the Shastra, if someone chants just one time, there's many verses like that. If someone, actually you can't chant one time, that's a misnomer. Chanting means to repeat. If one utters the holy name one time, so many lifetimes of karma are eradicated, right? Marada marada meta mangalam mangalanam sakala nigma valli satpalam chit swarupam. Sakrid means one. Sakadabi padigitam shraddayahiliyava bhagavadanalamatram tadiye Krishna nama. The holy name of Krishna is the sweetest of the sweet, marada marada, most auspicious of the auspicious. It is the very fruit of all the Vedic writings, the ripened fruit, full of transcendental bliss and potency. If someone utters it even once with faith or without faith, it will deliver him from sinful reactions. Now one may question this because he says, well, that's, we've seen people chant more than once, and then, but remain entangled or quickly resume their entanglement in the material world. Well, the idea is that there's this famous fan going, the fan of your karma and momentum that's pushing you along into different situations, into different bodies. And if you chant the holy name, you unplug the fan one time. Your karma is actually eradicated. But the tendency, because of all of our conditioning, is to continue acting in a sinful way. So you're free, you walk by the party, you're free, but you don't even know it. Maybe that name's stuck in your head, whatever, but, And then the next, you're with your friends, and you had planned to go to the bar and the movie theater and whatever. And you plug the fan back in, you start a whole new series of karma. So you're liberated at that point. If you keep chanting and you don't commit any more sinful activity, then you're free. You're liberated. But that's very rare. But the point is that all that karma that was accumulated, gross and subtle, and is determining your destiny, is now eradicated. So really, you can't even perform enough sinful activities to negate. In other words, the slate is clean, and your life is auspicious, although you may not know it. So now here it's speaking about the pure devotee, as I mentioned from the previous verse, one who is completely devoid of the propensity to criticize others, who's very realized in hearing and chanting, like that. So the warning here is not to judge such a soul by the external manifestation. This happens. This comes up all the time in Chaitanya Lila. After Jagai and Madai were delivered, Lord Chaitanya warned all his associates, now don't see them in terms of their previous activity. I mean, it's really hard, you've seen someone every day, they're drunkards, they're dacoits, and then you see them the next day, but they've been blessed, and you have to try to put all of that, what you think you know they are, out of your mind. So so since in the material vision, you generally judge by appearances. Now it's true that devotees will look different. There's a certain amount of that, but there's also so much external that can't be changed. Especially as mentioned here, bad complexion, deformed body, external things. In the material vision, this is like, okay, I don't want to associate with that person. They're in a wheelchair or something, they're old, So that has to be put aside, and you have to really see from the activities of the person and what they say. This is mentioned in the Shastra that, Prabhupada often goes, a fool cannot be recognized until he speaks. But the quality of what someone does and the vibrations coming from their mouth, that's how you really can see the quality of a devotee. Their activities are obviously devoid of sense gratification motive. And you see the person, just like Prabhupada, everything he did was to push on the mission, to guide the devotees, to chant Hare Krishna. There was no lapse into selfish activity, like the neophyte. So such a devotee we should see. We should not judge through these defects. Now, Prabhupada quotes here from the Bhagavad Gita, Mam Chiyova Bicharina Bhakti Yogena Sevate, that the whole chapter, in the 14th chapter, he's talking about the different modes of nature. You remember that? And he's describing the different symptoms or the characteristics of one who is predominantly controlled by passion or ignorance or even goodness. And he makes it clear, Krishna makes it clear there, that in material life, none of the modes are actually completely dominant. There's nobody purely in the mode of passion. There's a mix. One is more dominant, but no matter how ignorant someone is, there's a tinge of goodness in there like that. And someone in goodness has a tinge of ignorance. And that ignorance can sometimes take over and for temporarily be more prominent. This is the way the modes work. So Arjuna, after hearing all this, he asked the question that we'd all like to ask, well, how does one transcend the modes? And what's the symptoms? What's the characteristics of one who has transcended the modes? So Krishna first tells the characteristics, so you can recognize, and then he gives this verse, which is the second to last verse in the chapter. The method by which anyone can transcend the modes. And you realize, well, that's really important to do, to move up the modes. First of all, the lower the mode you're in, the more suffering you're going to have. You see someone in the mode of ignorance, lazy, dirty, on drugs, procrastinate, a little mad, like the guy who walked in last night. I haven't told Bhajan Ryan Maharaj about it yet. He should probably know. He wanted to take his clothes off in front of the deity. I mean, what the hell is that at? Obviously crazy. Well, you don't want to, associate with such a person. Someone who's in the higher mode, you can see. So, transcending the modes, coming to the mode of pure goodness, is something that we should all want to do. And first he gives a wonderful description of the characteristics, and kind of the overall thrust of that description is that someone is equipoised even in this world. In other words, can't be shaken. He may come into a situation that's dominantly mode of passion. I like to think of, Prabhupada is a perfect example. Comes to America, he's completely transcendental in mode of, pure goodness. And yet he's come, as he says in that poem, how are these people going to be able to understand? There's so much control by the lower modes. Then he goes into New York City, which is personified passion and ignorance. He dives in. But he himself is not affected. I visualize Prabhupada walking up and down Broadway. I used to live in Manhattan, and back in the 70s it was different. Broadway was really gross, there was different pornographic theaters on each side, Prabhupada is going, he's got his bag of books. He was looking for a bookstore to, play some bhagavatams. He's there and he's completely transcendental. He's not being affected by any of this stuff, And that's the salient characteristic of someone who has transcended the modes. He's fixed in pure goodness. And when he or she has a chance, the effect to others to come to that platform. Otherwise, you remain unshaken. And we see it now in our regular reading with Dhruva. We saw it with Prahlad. Even though they're children, they're incredibly fixed in meditation on the Lord, and they're not affected by, well, of course, Dhruva is another example. He eventually gets to that point. But Prahlad especially is not affected by all of the horror that's visited upon him by his father and his henchmen. You imagine how transcendental you have to be. You're going to go that plopped into a big pot of boiling oil. Hey, bring it. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Quite a situation. So that's he's describing. This is what the pure devotee is. He's avyabhicharina. Avyabhicharina means fixed, cannot fall down from the platform. And Prabhupada gives a wonderful definition here. We can remember. If consciousness is aimed toward material enjoyment, it is material consciousness. If it is aimed toward serving Krishna, it is Krishna consciousness. It is like that definition in the 4th chapter, Adi Lila, that when one's desires are aimed toward one's own sense gratification, that's called kama. But when the desires are aimed toward pleasing Krishna, that's called prema. And in the 3rd chapter, at the end of the 3rd chapter of Gita, there's this whole little lust section. What is it that forces us to do things we know are bad? Like the addict. The intelligence is saying, no. But the body and the mind is saying, yes, you have to do it. It's kama. It's material desire. And in those purports, Prabhupada explains that kama and prema are closely related. The prema, the original prema, a love for Krishna, when it comes down and is contaminated by the modes of nature, becomes kama. So it's really a question of sublimating that same kama, that material desire. And that's why that is the whole thrust of bhakti. And that's why in devotional service there's so many things to do. It's not just you don't come into the temple and it's a blank slate, quiet room, and there's somebody just meditating in there. No, there's all kinds of activities. There's impressions. There's sights and smells and tastes and sounds, especially, because that's what our desire is engaged in now. So that same desire to hear material sounds, we transfer to desire to hear Krishna's name and everything about Krishna. The same desire to eat nonsense food is desire to eat prasadam. And so that purification takes place through that activities. One is going from kama to prema. Yeah. Oh, the mic. Yeah. Okay, hold up. 30 seconds. 10 seconds.
So you're kind of explaining how we dovetail our lower propensities in Krishna consciousness, and then they harmonize with the nature of our soul.
Yeah.
So what binds us here is more or less sex desire. So that sex desire should be directed towards Krishna as well.
Well, that sex desire, this is the actual definition, you look it up in the dictionary, can be sublimated. That sublimated means to make directed toward other things. And that same sex desire can become the great, ardent desire that we see in Krishna's intimate devotees to serve him, to please Krishna. And then the lower desire doesn't bother. That famous verse quoted twice in the Gita, in the purports, by Yamunacharya. We should always remember he was the king, and kings have the greatest facility for sensuality, right? So he became exalted devotee, wrote this Stotra Ratna. And that verse, Yadavade Mamacheta Krishna Pada Aravinde, he says, now, since I have been enjoying ever fresh mellows and varieties of bhakti rasa by serving the lotus feet of Krishna, whenever I now remember, because the mind, sometimes things come up like little bubbles in a pond, whenever I remember the sex life with a woman, my mouth twists and I spit at it. In other words, there's no desire there. There's disgust at this illicit, connection. So the idea is that the desire itself has been sublimated. Now, it also can be used for bringing forth Krishna conscious children. That's Krishna says, I am the sex desire that's not contrary to religious principles. So don't get me wrong, but in the sannyas ashram, brahmacharya ashram, what do you think it means? Nidahara vaharakadi vijito. They conquered over sleep, eating, and sex. Vihara is so it wasn't even there anymore. They didn't want to eat. They practically hardly ate and hardly slept. It's practically inconceivable, and there was no question of sex desire. You read but their writings, the writings of Rupa Goswami and all the others, they're contain one of the beautiful descriptions of Krishna's meeting with the gopis and interactions, which to the material mind looks like sex attraction, but it's not. It's something else. So that can be sublimated to the point where it's not even there anymore. On the other hand, dealing with reality, many devotees are married or they want to get married. That's fine, but it has to be under certain control. And keeping the goal in mind to eventually transcend it. So there's a period of time, 25 years, when it's very strong. Okay, you have a family, raise the kids, but then you come out of it. It's not till the end of life, when you remain attached, and you have to come back again. So as a plan, for those who want to go for broke, and even as young men, take brahmacharya and go, fine, you can do that. If you can do that, it's glorious. Prabhupada would encourage that, if possible. But there's a fallback position. It's not that you're out like the Mayavadis, either you're sannyasi or you can't do it. In 6th chapter, there's no mention of household or life. Go alone to the Himalayas, sit, and practice pranayama. Fine. There's relatively very, very, very few who can even attempt that, what to speak of succeed. But everybody can attempt bhakti. That's the magic of it. From the lowest to the highest. It's applicable. There's a program for everybody. If you follow, if you're sincere, you can come from a low position to a very high position. So it's there's varieties. Kama can be used in Krishna's service. It's right there in the Gita, and it's there. Lord Chaitanya's, most of his followers were householders, so it happens like that. All right, let's go on. So Prabhupada goes into Abhyabhicharani Bhakti. He quotes the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the famous verse, Anyabhilashida shunyam, devoid of other desires. Karma jnanadi means material desire for gross sense gratification, even desire for mukti, that's what the jnana is about, anadi, and anything else you come with. Completely devoid. Then, okay, so that's the negative side. What's the positive side? Anukulena Krishna Anushilanam. Your behavior, your activities are in the category of having as a motive to please Krishna favorably. Anukulena is favorable. Krishna Anushilanam. Bhakti Uttama. This is Uttama Bhakti. And in the previous purport, he ended with a description of the Uttama Bhakta. So that's what this movement is founded on. That verse basically is the key. Everything is based on Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And so we're aiming toward that. So, okay, Kanishthadikari, Majjamadikari, we went through that. Abhichet Suraracharo, Prabhupada would love to quote this verse. The definition of a sadhu is Bhajate Mamananya Bhak. And even if there might be some, fleeting bad behavior or something, then you can't just judge someone by that. One has to see his overall life. And then the next verse, Krishna will say, and if someone he may accidentally perform some bad activity, and it's not even durachara, it's sudurachara, horrible activity. But one should see, the whole idea is how one should see. Mantavya, you should consider that person a sadhu if his overall life and is Bhajate Mamananya, undeviating devotional service. And if there's also a evidence of repentance, one is really, trying to straighten out. Actual identity is one of engaged in loving service. Okay, let's go on. All right, we read this about the Goswami, not controlled by the senses. According to this formula, the Goswamis, who are descendants of Sri Nityananda Prabhu and Sri Advaita Prabhu, are certainly devotees, but devotees coming from other families should not be discriminated against. Indeed, whether the devotees come from a family of previous acharyas or from an ordinary family, they should be treated equally. One should not think, oh, here's an American Goswami, and discriminate against him. Nor should one think, here is a Nityananda Vangsha Goswami. There is an undercurrent of protest against our awarding the title Goswami to the American Vaishnavas of the Krishna consciousness movement. Sometimes people flatly tell the American devotees that their sannyas or title of Goswami is not bona fide. However, according to the statements of Srila Rupa Goswami in this verse, an American Goswami and a Goswami in a family of acharyas are not different. So everything is based on guna and karma, the quality of a person and what they actually do. This is, in India there's this whole caste system that's developed, and the upper caste tend to oppress the lower caste. It's a complete perversion of the actual varnashram system. Krishna says, Bhagavad Gita, all those, those verses in the 18th chapter, Shamo Dhammas Tapak Shausham Chantar Arjam Evacha Jnana Vijnanamastika Brahma Karma Sabhavajam. This is born of the activity. That's to see what the person actually does, not from the birth. If one is born in a Brahmin family, you have a good chance of becoming a Brahmin. You have your parents to train you up, so you may have the qualities, but it's not a given. And if you're born in a Brahmin family, you don't have the Brahmin characteristics, you're a Brahma Bandhu, which is kind of, it's a polite term. It says a friend of a Brahmin, but really it means someone who's born but doesn't have the characteristics. Now, on the other hand, as devotees who may come from all kinds of backgrounds, we have a responsibility to actually act in the ashram that we're in, and to be good examples, because Prabhupada is defending us here. We should be careful to act as we're supposed to. Okay, so Prabhupada is dealing with this Nityananda Vangsha thing. That's, I'm a descendant of Nityananda, or the caste Goswamis. That's in India, so he's mentioning that. Okay. On the other hand, the devotee who has attained the title of Goswami but is not born of a Brahmin father or of a Goswami in the family of Nityananda or Advaita Prabhu should not be artificially puffed up by thinking that he has become a Goswami. He should always remember that as soon as he becomes materially puffed up, he immediately falls down. This Krishna consciousness movement is a transcendental science, and there is no room for jealousy. This movement is meant for the Paramahamsas, who are completely free from all jealousy. That was mentioned, devoid of the propensity to criticize others. Remember that? Paramam nimatsaranam. Does anyone remember where that line comes from? Second verse, Bhagavatam. Paramatsaranam satam vedyam. It's understood. The Bhagavatam and the whole science of bhakti is understood by those who are free of envy. One should not be jealous whether he is born in a family of Goswamis or has the title of Goswami awarded to him. As soon as anyone becomes envious, he falls from the platform of Paramahamsa. If we consider the bodily defects of a Vaishnav, we should understand that we are committing an offense at the lotus feet of the Vaishnav. An offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnav is very serious. Indeed, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has described this offense as Hati Mata, the mad elephant offense. A mad elephant can create a disaster, especially when it enters into a nicely trimmed garden. One should therefore be very careful not to commit any offense against a Vaishnav. Every devotee should be ready to take instructions from a superior Vaishnav, and a superior Vaishnav must be ready to help an inferior Vaishnav in all respects. One is superior or inferior according to his spiritual development in Krishna consciousness. One is forbidden to observe the activities of a pure Vaishnav from a material point of view. For the neophyte especially, considering a pure devotee from a material point of view is very injurious. One should therefore avoid observing a pure devotee externally, but should try to see the internal features and understand how he is engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. In this way, one should avoid seeing the pure devotee from a material point of view, And thus one can gradually become a purified devotee himself. Prabhupada, by the way, when he would use the word purified and pure interchangeably. So this last purified, is, means pure. Become a pure devotee himself. Yeah, go ahead. I'm going to stop here anyway. Go ahead.
Concerning this point about envy, at least for myself, I'm coming from a background where, my whole success in life is based on my ability to be envious of others. In the Western. So, coming out of that, it's just like unplugging the fan. That envy seems to still be there, and it seems to be like reawakened in a sense in some activities in Krishna consciousness, particularly book distribution. And there's a kind of the temple I'm a part of. There's a strong mood of competition, and that competition I notice kind of churns jealousy and envy within my heart. So, how does one? And then I was also thinking about, with envy is kind of more or less coming from this desire for like honor and prestige. So the weeds of devotional service. So what is the practical method of extracting those weeds of devotional service from our heart? Because if envy is
no, not weeds of devotional service. You mean weeds in the garden of devotional service? Yeah. The practical method is to always glorify. I'll tell you a little story. I was back in 1975, I got the incredible opportunity to go to the opening of the Krishna Balaram temple in April, I think it was April of 75. So I'd never been to India before, I immediately got sick, and most of the trip I remember kind of lying down, but anyway, I won't mention that. But on this, we went to Mayapur first, and Prabhupada was there, and big crowds and kirtan and everything. And then we went to Hyderabad. The temple was under construction then. But we still slept in it. I remember sleeping near the rebars and everything, But on the way to Hyderabad, I was in this long train ride from Calcutta to Hyderabad. Forget how many hours, 8 hours maybe. So, on this long trip, I chanted and dozed a little bit. There was a devotee next to me who was a little senior. He was a book distributor. Sarvabhauma, I think you still see him in LA sometimes? Yeah, he's still there. So, getting in the modes, I was 2 years in the movement, I was starting to criticize this one, criticize that one. And he stopped me. He said, stop, I don't want to hear it, You should always try to glorify the devotees, glorify the Lord, glorify the Dham. If you're in that glorification mood, you can't be in the critical mood, And I took that to heart. A lot of what we do in Krishna consciousness is kind of, it's kind of not the best way of putting it, but it's easy to remember. Fake it till you make it, Like, okay, yeah, I can get up early. My mind is all over the place, but I'm faking it means I'm doing externally thing, and I can chant. My mind is all over the place. I'm chanting. We know that it's control the mind, bring it back, Hare Krishna, And gradually, if you keep doing that, the mind, the body, they undergo changes. You become habituated to doing what you're supposed to do. It's a reconditioning. And the fact is that glorification and envy cannot exist at the same time. If you're glorifying the Lord, the shlokas are so great, They contain this dainya mood. I've been studying this for my little seminar I'm going to hopefully do in a few days in Chicago with Roman Padmaraj. If you go to the Nectar of Devotion, there's a section called Submission. Actually, what that submission is not what we think it is. Submission means submitting a petition or an entreaty to the Lord, like you submit a report. Anyway, there's some confusion about it. But the word is vigyapti, and you'll see some songs, vigyapti. And so, within vigyapti, within that category of entreaty, which is like prayer, a prayer is a kind of entreaty in the ordinary sense. You glorify the Lord, you ask for something, right? So there's also a section called dainya bodhika, which means submitting the report or declaring one's wretched, lowly condition. And the song, Hari Hari Vipale Janma Gonaina, Prabhupada's favorite song, is basically within this category of Dainya Bodhika, which means there's no prayer there. It's just a declaration. I've wasted my whole life. That's what Vipale means. There's no fruit. I came to this world, but I neglected to worship Radha and Krishna, and it's basically declaring one's wretched condition. So now, if you actually feel that way and you understand and you declare it to the Lord, it's not just it's Hari Hari Vipale. He's addressing Hari, but he's not praying for anything at that time. He said, "I'm ashamed to come before you." It's impossible to feel envy. That's the whole idea of Trinadapi Sunichena. If you're really feeling, I'm down here, at the bottom, how can I be, envious? I have to realize my condition. You understand it, So this glorification of the devotees is wonderful. Glorification of the Lord, some kind of glorification to keep going, and you'll find that envy seed doesn't plant, gets kind of choked off. And it's Krishna, and Krishna is blessing you, because that's really the mood we should be in. Now many of the prayers, they have that Dainya element to them. Just like Lord Chaitanya, he's teaching us how to pray in the Shikshastika. So nadanang nadanang nasundarin kapitang vajagadishakamiye mama janmani janmani shade bhavata bhakta dahoita kitve. Now that doesn't have it so much. He's saying, it's a very important prayer. He's saying, here's what I'm not praying for. Wealth, women, followers, mundane piety, I don't care. Liberation, I don't care. All I want is unmotivated devotion unto you. Now, this is a very interesting aspect. Okay, anyone can say that prayer. We've said it 100 times. And even though we may still have some desire for some of those things, we still say it. We still try to get into the mood of Lord Chaitanya and act on the basis of that. And not, actually offer a prayer for liberation. I want to be liberated and merge into the Brahman. No one is going to say that. But then the next one is in this Dainya mood. Ainanda tanudya kinkadam patitam mam vishame bhavam bodo kripayata vapada stitaduri sadushan vichindaya. Patitam, I'm fallen. I have fallen and I am fallen, right, into this horrible, this ocean. That means it was my own volition. I did it. So please pick me up and make me a gopi. No. Pick me up and make me a little drop of dust on your lotus feet. This has that Dainya mood in it, And so the last one also, Ashta Shiva. So the point is, the devotee, you read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and all of a sudden, Krishna's Kaviraj is saying, anyone who chants my name, is contaminated and I feel lower than the worm and stool. Where is this coming from? He's actually feeling that he's very low and praying. And the greatest prayer of all, the one that's kind of the crown, the fountain from which all this movement has grown, Madhavendra Puri's famous verse, which he chanted on his deathbed, so to speak. The very word is there. Aidina dayardranatahe. Here's Srimati Radharani herself saying, oh, your heart is melting for the most wretched, that's me. What am I going to do now? When am I going to see you again? Due to my not seeing you, my heart has grown fickle and steady. What can I do now? It's a pure expression of this feeling lowly and neglected and helpless without Krishna's mercy. So we need to, read, absorb ourselves in. There's so many songs like this with that Narottam, like I mentioned that one. And if you're regularly absorbed in that and chanting your rounds in that mood, this is our main prayer. Feeling very desperate. Trinadapi Sunichena, please save me. Then that puffed up nature can't come. That's the key. Always try to glorify the Lord and His devotees in devotional service. And help devotees, share with devotees, and you'll appreciate every one of them. And a devotee does a wonderful service, distributing so many books. Great! So many more souls are saved and it's helping, and that's the way we should feel. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.